just double check here to make sure that we are popping up live. So this is where we just tell everybody, talk amongst yourselves.
Yeah, don't
We
forget to mute yourselves.
Right. Okay. We are live here, folks. Thank you so much for tuning in to this special edition of Talking About Horses. We're excited to bring you this podcast. This is episode number, I believe, 66 of this podcast now. And today I am really excited to be joined by the fantastic lineup of presenters, as well as the organizer of this year's Best Horse Practices Summit. The Best Horse Practices Summit, if you aren't familiar with it, is a 501c3 nonprofit conference focused on improving the horse-human connection through education and horsemanship. It brings together equine professionals and horse owners to share knowledge and best practices in a collaborative environment. The summit features presentations, arena demonstrations, and opportunities for hands-on learning. I'm really excited this year to be on the team with the Best Horse Practices Summit, and really excited to have this chance to pull everybody together and talk to you about what the summit is and what we're going to be talking about this year. So first, I want to introduce the mastermind behind it all, Miss Maddie Butcher.
Yay, Maddie.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Thank you, Patrick King, for organizing this podcast and getting all us technologically challenged horse people in line for the big event. So I really appreciate it. I'm also really excited for the event itself. It's a mini summit, we're calling it. One, because there are fewer presenters, and two, because there are fewer slots available to attend. In years past, we've had it open to a few hundred. There's only 70 spots available this time.
Fantastic. So, Maddie, I want to jump in with the question of what prompted you to put this together in the first place? Like, why the summit? What's the goal? What really caused you to want to put this together?
It goes back to, I think, 2016, 2017. I had just come back from a horse expo that won't be named, and I was really discouraged by just the amount of kind of selling and blitzing that went on, and really there was nothing in it for the horse from my perspective. And I knew we could do better. And I call, the nickname for the Best Horse Practices Summit is the Silver Lining Summit, because what do you do with a bad deal like that? You look for the silver lining. Specifically, this summit, I feel like you all are a group that is enthusiastic about collaboration, and I find in this day of guru following that it's just incredibly inspiring to have really, really excellent horsemen and women who are very enthusiastic about collaborating. So I think it's rare, and that was, I think that's what's going to make this conference special, is that there's more collaboration than ever.
Yeah, and I know that in talking with everybody, kind of behind the scenes, and as we were getting prepared for even this presentation, this broadcast, that was one of the things that kept coming up, is the collaboration and the fact that this summit is set up specifically for the collaborative idea, right? Bringing in different horses, and it's not just. And gang, I'll have you all turn on your microphones on this, because I'd love to hear your shared thoughts with this as well. But it's not just, here we're one presenter is going to talk and the other presenter is going to parrot and say, yes, that's right, that's what it is. There's things that come up where it's different ideas and different approaches. And that, I think, in some instances can seem risky, right? Having potentially, clashing ideas, and as we see often happen, clashing egos in an arena. And that is definitely, in my experience at the last summit that I was able to be part of, uh, that stood out as one of the biggest things. As for me, as a takeaway, is even when there was a difference of opinion, there was a commonality in the shared interest in the horse and what was best for the horse specifically.
Yep. Yeah, the tagline for up the tag. Sorry, Patrick, you're going to have to yell at Jim to unmute himself.
Uh-oh, maybe I can do it on this end.
Oh,
There you
okay,
go.
there it goes. So can
What
I
were you
mute
going to say?
myself though? I can mute myself though, right?
Yeah.
I was just going to say I disagree with everything he said just then. So just want to throw that out there.
So typical Jim.
Carry on.
I was just
Unmute.
going to say that, I've not been a part of a summit yet, but I have been at plenty of expos, and just that single aspect of collaboration and the idea that as professionals, we can be up there and sharing our experience and what we've seen with horses, what we've learned over, many years and many experiences, could still be called into question on the day and sort of be like, well, is that the best way? Or have you thought about it this way? And of course, as we all know, with horses, it can vary a lot, what you're going to do or what might be the right thing to do in a situation. But there's no doubt that there's strength in numbers and there's wisdom in the multitude of counselors. And I think that single aspect of this summit sets it apart from all the others when it comes to the way that we're going to collaborate and share ideas.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I guess I'm a little remiss here, and I didn't introduce everybody here as we're going. So let me do that. And Ben, while we have you on here, so the presenters this year, we have Ben Longwell, who, if you're listening or if you're watching, you just saw or heard Ben chatting here. Ben, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Let's see. I guess I grew up on a ranch in Colorado, and basically have been horseback most of my life. But it wasn't till probably my early 20s, 20 or 21, that I discovered what we could call horsemanship and a way of being around a horse that fits the horse. And it just turned a light on for me. I think it was something I'd been looking for my whole life. So I guess I specialize in colt starting and problem solving. I am passionate about the vaquero tradition and the history of the bridle horse, and really making the best working stock horses that we can, but also helping people realize that the keys to that are valuable for any horse, any discipline, any breed. And so I was based in New Zealand a lot over the last several years, moved back to the States about 3 years ago. And that was an education. That's a whole nother story. But it's just a privilege to work with serious, dedicated students of the horse and improve their communication, their understanding.
That's fantastic. I'm really looking forward to meeting you, Ben, and to getting the chance to work with you at this year's summit. So that's fantastic.
Likewise.
Thank you. So that's Ben Longwell, everyone. Our next presenter on here, and of course, there's no specific order. It's just how everybody's popping up on my screen here. But our next presenter popping up on my screen is Miss Katrin Silva. Katrin, say hello to the world here and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi there. I've been a part of the Best Horse Practices Summit from the first one. When Maddie organized the first summit, it was in Durango. I'm based in New Mexico, so I thought, oh, I'll drive up there. And I had been writing a couple of things for her website by that point, and so I walk in there to this conference, and I'm thinking, okay, I'm just going to like stand against the wall like I normally do and slink around the back. And Maddie came up to me and hugged me and gave me a VIP tag and introduced me to everybody, and so that was the beginning of a great collaboration. And then I came back to present at this thing the next year, and there already was the spirit of collaboration. I was co-presenting with Amy Skinner. We've done that a couple of times, and it was just a wonderful thing to see that we all have things to learn, and we're all learning from each other, and for the presenters and the participants and everybody just having this great shared sense of, okay, we're all in this together and we're all in it for the horses. And so my background is I grew up in Germany, as probably most people can hear. I grew up riding dressage as a kid, and I thought, well, this doesn't feel right to me. The stuff that I'm reading in those, very voluminous German classic books about dressage, it's all about lightness. It's all about, harmony. It's all about those things that I wanted, and I didn't feel that on the horses I was riding. That felt very heavy and very luggy and very, like a German dressage horse often feels. So then when I was a teenager, a new barn opened up closer to my house, and I could ride my bicycle there, every day after school. And that was, a guy trying to ride horses Western. And of course, it was in the 1980s. I'm pretty old here. And so, we didn't really know what we were doing, but I started hanging out at that barn, and I ended up leading trail rides and giving beginner lessons and just riding any horse that anybody would let me ride. And it was a great educational experience, because I got a chance to just ride a ton of different horses that had various behavioral issues. And I came away just learning a lot about what works and what doesn't. And of course, we rode in the Western saddles. We learned what we could. We were fascinated by the like Ben said, the bridle horse, the hackamore horse, the long flowing manes, all of that. I mean, I remember when I saw my first quarter horses perform. That was in Munich at an exhibit called the Americana in 1983, and I was 12 years old. I was blown away. And so the day I graduated from high school, I was on a train to Italy first, and then a year later, I was on a plane to the United States. And then I've been here ever since. I was on a tourist visa that then ran out. And so then I was in the country illegally, working on various horse ranches and living in bunkhouses and just having the time of my life. And eventually I got married, became legal, and I've just been training horses. I eventually came back to dressage, and I realized that there's so much common ground between traditions, between natural horsemanship, vaquero Western, dressage. I mean, all of that. Good horsemanship is always good horsemanship. And so that is what I'm after now.
That's fantastic, and I love that. So far, talking with you and both you and Ben, it is that idea of mixing things, right? And the importance of that horsemanship there, regardless of what the discipline really is. It's that solid horsemanship behind it, and horses are horses, really, right? And what I really love is what you mentioned about that big hug and the VIP pass when you showed up at that first Best Horse Practices Summit. And I have to say, when I was there at the last one, that general attitude, that welcoming attitude, and that, oh, there you are, felt like it was extended to everyone who walked in the door. I hope they all felt it as much as I felt it, as much as it really looked that way, because it was so much that welcoming atmosphere about, thank goodness you're here. We've got things to share. We'd like to talk with you, whether it was the participants or the presenters, right? The spectators or the presenters. There's very much that welcoming feel to that. And thank you, Maddie, for putting it together so that it feels that way. I think that's really, really important.
Yeah, Maddie totally works magic with that attitude. And it's really something. I've spent a lot of my life not fitting into the dressage world, not fitting into the competitive world of Western show horses, always feeling out of place. And then I walk into the summit, it's like, oh, there's a place. Like there's there's people who understand that we're all in it for the horse, and that you're in competitive environments. That's a lot of times that's not really the case. So thank you, Maddie.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thank you so much, Maddie. That's such a big piece of this, and that's important for getting information across, right? Folks have to feel welcome. They have to feel confident being there in order to take in the information that's being presented. So kudos for setting that up. It's not always easy to make such an event feel so, as many people as can be there, it still feels intimate, and I think that that's so important.
Two things that I think are important elements of the conference, and also important elements of being with a horse, is setting up something with the right vibe and with the right venue, with the right food, is simple but not easy. And I'm sure that you guys talk all the time. Forgive the noise. I'm at the public library. But there's a lot of things in horsemanship that are simple but not easy. Secondly, the tagline of the conference is the conference your horse wants you to attend. And I think that that was a real reminder to me constantly in setting it up, to just keep that as a priority. One more thing is that I know that learning is very difficult if I don't feel safe, and if I'm not at least a little bit relaxed. And the whole goal with attendees and presenters is to make them feel fairly safe. I mean, you're never 100% safe when Daniel and Jim are in the room, but for the most part.
Yeah, exactly. Because learning, is inherently a little stressful, right? Being able to put down preconceived ideas and potentially pick up new ideas, right? That ability to feel safe in that situation is really so important. And I know for me, one of my big uh, kind of beliefs is that as a teacher, it's our job to empower our students to really be in that learning process. And feeling comfortable or feeling safe is such an important piece of that. Yeah. And again, kudos, Maddie, because you really do set the stage for that. And it
It's
just
it's
goes really well.
tricky, as we know, with horses. And I'm going to shut up after this, but you want to be stretching your comfort zones. You want to be exposing yourself to new ideas that might be risky, and yet you want to put yourself in a relaxed, relatively parasympathetic situation. So it's a real balance. But
Absolutely. Absolutely. Speaking of that balance and speaking of relaxation and finding that parasympathetic state, another one of our presenters, as you mentioned, not always safe when Jim and Daniel are in the room, but Jim Masterson also joining us. Jim, let's turn on your microphone here and introduce yourself there for us, sir.
Okay, am I on? Good.
You are.
Hi, I'm Jim Masterson. Kind of coming at this from a little different angle than training, but there's such an overlap in the way that that we do body work with the horse, that we work with the horse, on that level with natural horsemanship, and there's a huge overlap. So I'm kind of lucky in the sense that I don't always have to. I don't. With trainers, you might have different ways of training or different opinions and stuff, and then but I don't. With there's no other body workers on this at the summit, so I have a little bit more free reign, but I'm always happy to be called on something or asked a question, because I'm here to learn too. We're all that way, right? I'm always here to learn, because especially when it comes to training and the horse's body. But and I mean, a lot of things you guys are saying just click with me. With our students, they got to be. Our goal is for them to learn, not to show them how much we know. So it's like working with. I always equate working with people as like you're working with a horse. Are you gonna smack them when they're not doing what you want? Your student. No, you're gonna kind of show them where they might have been doing something right, and then kind of build on that. So it's like working with a horse to me when you work with people. As far as my background, I'm from Southern California. We had our family horse when I was a kid, and then I had my pony a little later, and then just in rural Southern California. There isn't much rural Southern California much anymore, but there was at one time. But then around 14, I was away from horses. And maybe back with them on and on. I lived in Wyoming for a few years, and I wasn't in the horse business then, but I got back into horses in about it was 1998 or 9, I think. there's a hunter jumper barn. There were a couple in this town I live in Fairfield, Iowa, but they aren't around anymore. But a couple of families wanted their kids to show. And so they hired a trainer, and they had a beautiful farm, but she needed a groom to go on the road with her. So my wife said, well, get off the couch and go to work for Val, the trainer. And so I did, because, I love horses. And that's when I noticed it, in the hunter jumper world, I noticed the horses were working pretty hard. And a lot of the trainers, some of the trainers could be a little bit, rough with the horses, but that's what I kind of got interested in this when I was grooming these hunter jumpers. And there were a couple of, I've told this story before, but I can do it real quick. There were a couple of people that inspired me. One was an older guy, horse chiropractor from New Zealand. He lived in California, but he got amazing results working on horses, and he used very long lever forceful techniques, but he had a really good feel, and he paid attention to what the horse was saying as he was adjusting the horse. So for example, if he would get adjust the pole and the atlas and half the neck all in one big shot, and then he'd step back to see what the horse had to say. And the horse would stand there for a couple of seconds. It might shake its head a little bit, but one of the signs he got a good adjustment is the horse would start yawning repeatedly, 7 or 8 times. So that was one of the signs that he got a good adjustment. And that I actually wanted to do what he did, but he didn't train people, and he was using very, long lever techniques, which you got to know what you're doing. But whenever he was at a show where we were at, I would drive him around and hold the lead rope just to pay, help and just pay attention. He didn't share a lot, but he I would ask some questions, he'd answer them. But then there was another incident at a horse show in Estes Park, the spring horse show in Estes Park. And our trainer hired a lady to massage the horses, and then her partner massaged the riders. But they started am I going too long? I'll try to keep this short. So the gal that was massaging the horse started by running her fingers very lightly down the top line of the horse along a Chinese medicine meridian called the bladder meridian, just to relax the horse and connect with the horse. And I noticed every once in a while, at some point, the horse might blink, and this is just barely touching, and the horse would blink, and I could see, well, the horse just felt something there, And so she showed me how to do this, and I ran my finger down the top line of the horse along this line, and the horse blinked, I would just stop there and do nothing and wait and just literally do nothing, which I like, doing, and no pressure on the horse, not rub it, not push harder, because nothing's happened, just wait. And at one point the horse dropped its head, and it shook its head, and it licked and chewed a few times, and it started yawning repeatedly. And then I could see it just let go of tension. So those two things together got me really interested in doing body work on the horses. And so I started, in Wellington, is where we were at the time. I mean, we were showing all over, but I started my own, started creating these techniques and adding movement to them in a relaxed state. But I was still grooming, but it was in that show environment, pretty high performance environment. So that I got to start in a really high performance environment, which allowed me to learn a lot. And I happened to fall in with another body worker, Bill Stanton, who was a vet tech for a really well-known vet down there for 20 years. And he went off to do body work on his own, and he was immediately swamped. And so he asked me to work for him. So I worked for him. So a huge education, we each worked on 50 horses a week, 50 to 60 during the season down there. So just huge education. And that's how I got started in this. The other part is people wanted to start to learn it because it's very interactive with the horse. So, there are a lot of these techniques that horse owners can use on their own horses. So I started teaching it, and that's what I do now. I work on some horses, but mostly it's teaching or managing teachers, because my goal is every horse on the planet experience that release. So having 60 instructors around the world is going to reach that quicker than me doing it, especially since I don't like to do stuff naturally lazy.
You can only run so fast, right?
Yeah, really. Yeah. So that's my story.
Yeah, that's great. What I really like about that, Jim, is, and I feel like we can all kind of share in with this in our learning process, also in our learning and development process, is that collaboration right?
Mhm.
The collaboration
Yeah.
that gets it started. There's the collaboration that keeps it going. There's, and the collaboration is what inspires the next generations of it, or the next movement or wave of this learning and the things that we have to share. So that's
being willing to learn from other people and learn from the horse, which is a huge part of it, and then willing to share it. And that's what teaching is. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, you mentioned that there was in there somebody that was working on the massage for the horses and the massage for the riders. And then our last presenter that we have to introduce here, I believe, is who's going to be doing the massages for the riders at this summit, and that's Daniel Dauphin, right? Is that Daniel? Is that what you're coming on to do?
Oh, he's got magic hands. I'm just going to tell you right off the bat.
And a jar of mayonnaise. That's a secret ingredient to a good massage, as everyone knows. Yep.
Goodness. Well, Daniel, thank you for joining us too, and excited to catch your presentations again this year at the summit. I tell just about everybody who's willing to listen that your presentation on bit fitting was one of the most insightful that I've seen, not to mention one of the funniest that I've seen. And that goes into exactly what Maddie said. When you and Jim are together in the room, it might not be all that safe, but there's going to be a lot of laughs had. So introduce yourself for us, Daniel, to everybody listening who might not know who you are.
So I'm Daniel Dauphin. If you don't know who I am, shame on you. You should definitely know who I am. I am famous at this point. Now, I lost a bet a few years ago and got relegated to the niche of teaching people about bits. And so to keep myself awake on this very boring topic, I try to incorporate a lot of humor and common sense and maybe some thought-provoking things, try to kill some of the dogma that doesn't serve the horse well and the myths that are propagated by the bit companies whose goal isn't to fit the horse correctly, it's to sell you more bits. And so there's a consumer protection aspect to what I'm doing as well. And I am really tickled this year that I get to get out from behind the podium and get to go play with some horses with some people I respect and consider friends. So I'm very much looking forward to this one.
It's going to be a blast. It really is. And
I think that's another cool part. That's another cool part of this, is because at this summit, we're going to be working together, in the arena. It's not like, each of us have a presentation and we share thoughts. It's like, we're going to be like working together, hands on. So sorry, I'll mute myself again. Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's great. That's something that I was going to mention as well, is that, at the last summit, one of the things that you could consistently hear in everybody's presentations was, oh, you remember when Jim talked about this? Here's how we're going to use that with training the horse. Do you remember what Daniel talked about when he was giving the bidding lecture? Here's where that piece comes in. You remember that piece that Katrin was talking about? There was so much passing the ball back and forth, right, from one presentation to the next, tying all the presentations together. So Maddie, tell me about, before we get into the schedule for this year, tell us a little bit about what brought to mind the idea of, hey, let's throw two people in the arena at the same time.
Yeah, I just think feeding off each other makes for a more engaged audience, for sure. One thing that's going to be different this year that we have put the kibosh on in the past, because we've had a videographer there and we've had to get the presentations recorded in a very succinct way. We really squelched questions kind of midstream, and then we didn't really have time for questions afterwards. And we've built into the schedule more time for the attendees to interact in a question and answer format with presenters. So I think that is a nice new element. But one thing before we jump into all the presentations and the collaborations, Patrick, for this being shared on everybody else's Facebook page, we need you to introduce yourself.
Oh man, I knew I was going to get called out under the rug for that. I like being on the controlling end of this stuff, so I don't
Right.
have to talk about myself. But thank you so much, Maddie. So I am a firm believer that classical principles support modern riders of all disciplines. I came from a diverse background of disciplines, and growing up worked with everything from Western horses to hunt seat horses to mini horses, and drafts. So I've got a lot of experience bouncing all over the place there. My primary focus at the moment is more on the classical side of dressage. I come from, one of my first mentors was a gentleman by the name of Ray Hunt. So I've got a lot of the classical Western in there as well. And, when we talk about classical, you tend to get a lot of arguments, of what is classical, what is not. And I tend to think of it as classical as what stands the test of time. And I think that's where, even here, what we're talking about with the Best Horse Practices Summit, what stands the test of time is what's real to the horse. Something that Ray Hunt used to tell us all the time is that the human has a lot of opinions, but the horse is the fact. And that's something that I try to think about all the time. And one of the things that an older friend, Wendy Murdoch, we've been friends for many, many years, she was one of the first that I heard to say, the horse always gets the final vote. And I've repeated that, I can't tell you how many times. And it's so important. And what stands the test of time is that psychology as well as the physiology, right? When you are working with the horse to develop the horse, right? Working with their mind and their psychology to develop them physically for whatever your discipline is. To me, that's what's going to stand the test of time. So that's the idea of the classical horsemanship in there. But so thank you, Maddie. Thank you for
Thank you.
calling me out on that. So perfect. So actually then, as we look at the printout from the website for the Best Horse Practices Summit, I'll share the link here for that for everybody. As we look at the printout that I've got here for the schedule, the first one's up on the schedule is actually Katrin and I talking about seat positions and frames, talking about the seat being used as the primary tool for horse and rider communication. So Katrin, do you want to share anything with us about what you and I are going to talk about there? Oh, you're muted there. Let me see if I can turn you on. There we go. I've got your microphone turned on there.
Oh, sorry. Yes. Sorry. Yeah, I forgot to do that. So yeah, I really, really look forward to doing this with you, Patrick, because I'm really, really sure that we're gonna, have a lot of common ground about it. And I talk about the seat a lot. I teach about the seat a lot, and it's just like this really, really often neglected and overlooked means of horse rider communication. I think it was Gerd Heuschmann who was at the 2018 Best Horse Practices Summit. He said, the horses, to the good rider, the horse's back is like an open book. And I think, to a horse, the rider's back is also like an open book. And so we all got to read that book in more detail and be like super careful, like what we put in there and what we transmit to the horse. And that is like really how I spend all day, every day, right? It's like I read the feedback the horse gives me through my seat, and then I respond back with my seat, and we just go about that. And it's a really cool thing to do. And a lot of people don't really use their seat in the way that it can be. So no, I'm super excited about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I agree so much with what you said, is that we don't always use the seat as much or as well as we could. And it is that open book, right? It's that primary interface between horse and rider. And we're the vertical addition to a horizontal spine, right? So we have so much influence there. And I know, one of the things that comes to mind for me, I've been teaching some riders here at home the last couple of days, in person. I do a lot of virtual teaching now, but some riders came in person, and it was, gosh, if you're working that hard, in this case we were talking about leg aids, if you're working that hard with your leg aids, it's going to be influencing your back. If your back is bracing, now the communication is shut off, right? So I'm really excited, as you said, to be talking about this together with you, because there's so much of a dynamic interplay. And as we talk about here, as is mentioned, the light seat and a firmer seat, and I'm sure we'll talk about the half seat and the connected seat, and when are those appropriate? When do we go to from one seat to a next? I was
Yeah, it's
riding a
gonna be
horse just before
super
coming on
cool. I
here
mean,
and needing to use those different variations.
yeah, no, definitely. I mean, that's like I always say, like, look, the full dressage seat, that's not something that you want to crash into a horse with on day one if you don't know each other. It's like, it's like reading, it's like being on like some dating website, and first you go for coffee, first you have like a kind of a hovering seat, and then like over time, as you get to know each other, then it's you don't want to go on your first date and say, oh, let's get married tomorrow. It's like the horse will say, I don't think so. So yeah, that's the analogy I use there. And it's like, yeah,
Yeah.
it's super important. Like there is this dressage seat, but it's not the most appropriate thing for every horse in every situation. Goodness no.
Mm-hmm. Right, right. And I'm really excited to hear some of the insights also that Jim is going to be able to bring into that. Like when we talk about using the seat, we can use the seat as a way of doing body work with the horse, right? Because that we are helping them to use themselves more athletically. And I really want to pick Jim's brain on this here in a couple weeks when we're teaching together. But the idea that you're influencing the way that that horse uses his body, right? Everything that we do in training is a form of body work, right? Either to the
Yeah,
benefit
it's
or to the
supposed,
detriment.
yeah, it's supposed to be. Yeah, it's supposed to be, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
supposed to keep the horse supple and loose and fit at the same time. But
Mm-hmm.
everything we transfer from our body into the horse is affecting his physiology. And that's is going to be, it's just fun because we have these philosophies of riding and training, and I get to kind of play with them. Like, wow, I can see how that affects this maybe in the horse, and maybe share that thought, and
Mm-hmm.
maybe it create, right or wrong, it creates some awareness. There might be other, but anyways, that's an exciting part of this for me to,
Yeah.
to be able to work with trainers. One of the things with Daniel at the Best Horse Practice Summit that we were at, and one of the first things he said, that at first I thought, oh no, here's this big old Louisiana cowboy, going to be telling us who knows what. But yeah, there he is. That that's at the other end of the bit. Anyways, no, one of the first things he said was, he asked, where's the first place the horse feels the connection with your hands when you're with the bit? And we're all thinking, well, it's in the pole, it might be in the TMJ, the jaw, it might be on the bars. He said, no, it's right on the lip, right here, just on the lip, before it even connects with anything else. So I don't know a lot about bits, but I know a lot about softness and how sensitive the horses are, and that's the levels we want to work on. So that's when I thought, well, maybe maybe he's smarter than he looks. I don't know. Plus, he has a good sense of humor. So that's the other thing. You were talking about making students comfortable. Sense of humor gets people relaxed, and the horses don't learn in the sympathetic; they learn in the parasympathetic, and people are the same. So when you tell a joke, at least if it's halfway funny, then they're, wow, I don't have to be so tense and uptight, because I don't know it much, and these people know a lot, and it kind of breaks the ice. So it's funny that we think jokes or sense of humor is part of horsemanship, but it's part of learning, anyways.
It's part of learning. That's a really, really great point. I love that. And so speaking of that body work there as part of the training, the next presentation that's listed on the website here is dressage and correct horsemanship as body work. And Jim, that's going to be you and Katrin talking about that, and how body work is going to help horses find comfort and ease. And so does dressage and proper horsemanship. So share with us, you guys, what your thoughts are on that.
Sure, Katrin.
Sure, Jim. No, it's like I'm super excited about that one too, because I got to tell you, Jim, we've got your book like on the table in our courtyard, that you will see at the barn in New Mexico, and we use it a lot. We use your body work a lot, and when I feel like a tension in a horse's body, it's like, okay, well, let's see what Jim Masterson has to say about that. And I was like, oh, okay, so it to me it all goes together. So dressage really has a history of being good for horses, of teaching horses how to carry a rider with more comfort and ease. And then, of course, the art of riding is to be a better load to carry. That's what Patrick and I will talk about. But to me, a big part of that is building the strength, building the suppleness, building the even-sidedness that the horse needs, the rider. And so that is, to me, is like a horse like that, that is ridden and worked correctly and has no underlying physical issues. It should be in fine physical shape. And then if I call a body worker and my chiropractor comes, or masters and practitioner, and says, oh, there's this and that, and that's wrong on this side, but not on that side. So then I sit up and listen, because like, okay, so I've been doing something wrong. I need to address that. So I was spent some time of my life working in my checkered history, working out of a team roping establishment. And that was always a funny thing to watch, because these team ropers, and some of them quite good and competitive team ropers, I don't know how to team rope at all, but they would, call the chiropractor, and every 6 weeks the chiropractor van would pull up, and they would adjust the horses and snap, crackle, pop, and then the team ropers would get back on their horses, and then they would, come into the box, and then they would come out of the box and turn left, and then they'd be done. And so then, I was like, I kind of suggested it would be good if those horses did a little more than come out of the box and turn left, and then they wouldn't need to, to have that same adjustment every single time the chiropractor pulls up. It's like, I think correct horsemanship should be a form of body work, and if it isn't, then maybe we need to address that. Like, they should build horses up and not break them down.
Yeah, I was always fascinated by when I discovered the training pyramid for dressage. How you start. I don't know what starts it. If it's rhythm or balance or whatever.
Yeah, rhythm and relaxation.
Yeah, and relaxation, and then you're supposed to build on that till you get to
right.
the holy grail of connection, right at the top. But at some point, a lot of training leaves that behind. Leaves those lower foundational things behind. Right?
Oh,
the
absolutely.
Relaxation and the rhythm and the balance. Maybe they'll have rhythm and balance, but it's not going to be relaxed. So that fascinated me when I saw that, because I didn't always have the best opinion of some of the ways I see dressage horses being ridden. But when I saw that, I thought that's not necessarily how it should be. And
I'm totally with you. I'm totally with you on that. Like, collection is it's something that's that just happens when you do everything else right. You never work separately on collection. It's like when you have like all the bits and pieces in place, and collection just happens.
It happens organically. It's just natural, right? And so
and it should be, and there should always be relaxation underlying all of it. Otherwise, it's not correct. And I'm with you. I see a lot of the other kind of dressage, and it's
Well, I think things are changing. I think I think things in general overall in the horse world are changing, where people are starting to be more aware of that. It's a little hard to kind of penetrate the upper levels, where there's a lot of competition and money involved, So, but I think things are changing, and we just have to keep doing what we're doing.
There we go. Exactly. And Katrin, you mentioned the team ropers. And that's a really good segue, I think, for our next piece on here. The next presentation that we have on the list is high RPMs. And that's something that Ben and Daniel are going to talk about. And we better jump on this before Daniel's connection fails us again. He's been bouncing in and out of here. So quick, Daniel, you got 5 seconds. Tell us what you're talking about. And he froze. Well, Ben, get started with us then. Here, you can start us off then, Ben, with what we're going to talk about for that high RPMs, where we're talking about the mental and physical aspects of riding faster.
There, Daniel's back now. Are you able to go, Daniel? Well, I'll jump in there.
There we go. Teamwork.
What I find is there's kind of two extremes, I guess, that I see a lot, and that's the folks that don't mind high RPMs. They like going fast. They don't mind when horses get a bit frantic in those situations. And then you've got the other end of the spectrum that are kind of scared by all that, and they don't ever go there. They don't ever speed things up or ask that much of their horses. And somewhere in the middle there, we've got to find a place where these horses know how to expand, how to handle intensity, how to move quickly, accurately, and still hold on to that relaxation that Jim and Katrin were just talking about. And that doesn't start with the physical side of things. That starts with the mental and emotional side of things. So the inside of the horse has to feel okay, is how Dr. Deb Bennett puts it, the okayness factor, you know, so that as they are mentally and emotionally able and capable, physically they're coming along with that. And as riders, we need to be intentional about developing that in our horses, so that it's not even just speed. I think intensity is a good word for it at times, where something might need to be done quick and in a hurry, but not bracy, not reactive, not tense, not flighty, just responsive and at that high RPM without losing that connection and that relaxation.
Yeah, that sounds really great. Daniel, are you able to
Yeah,
there we go. We got to go.
I hope. I tried a little something different. So, really, the part of this, and I'm not sure what Ben's already spoken to. I am looking forward to going fast with him on some horses and playing. To me, the part of this that's important is that whether you're going to be like Ben and I and need to doctor cattle in the pasture and the kind of thing where you really ask your horse for a lot or not, you could be on a simple trail ride and here comes the neighbor's dogs, and all of a sudden you have RPMs whether you expected to or not. And to me, you have to practice that ramping them up, and more importantly, you have to practice bringing them back down. And that is a tool that everyone should have in their toolbox, and something they should always be practicing with your horse. It'll make your horse more confident, more comfortable, and it'll make you a lot safer. And then you can have some fun, because going fast and doing things like that is a whole lot of fun. The horses enjoy it every bit as much as we do, so we don't kind of have to be stuck in second gear all the time. We can go play a little bit when we've got some access and some confidence that we can, bring the dragon back to the ground once we have lit the fire.
Can I just interject for a second? Daniel used the phrase "tools for the toolbox," and I really love that you were able to slip that in, Daniel, because that is what the summit is all about. Having attendees take tools back for their toolbox. Okay, peace out.
That's so important, right? That not just are the attendees going to be able to watch these presentations, right? But that they're going to actually be able to utilize them, depending on where they and their horses are at that moment in time, or at some moment in the future, right? They may be able to, hopefully they'll be able to pull out, oh, this applies, this is where Ben and Daniel were talking about this piece. This is where Katrin and Jim were talking about this piece. This is how that applies to me and my horse, right here and right now. Yeah. Absolutely.
And just to be clear, this is not a summit for people to come and ride. There've been a couple emails to me asking, can I bring my horse? The only folks riding will be our presenters.
There we go. Yeah, that's a really great piece to add in there for anybody that's curious about that. Yeah.
When we were talking about this, in the past couple months, about topics and things, I don't remember who brought up the RPM thing, but I like that. That was pretty cool, because horses like to move and people like to move, and a lot of young riders they like they like the RPM aspect and how to implement that in a way that's not like panic, how the horse is enjoying it, you're enjoying it. So I really liked it when that came up. And it kind of also underscores this is very practical summit information that we're going to be sharing. It's very practical. It's practical. It's not just about knowledge, which muscle does what and all that. It's all about practical, and it's all about results, and it's about the right results when you're doing something with your horse.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. And I like the way this keeps coming back to what it's bringing to mind for me. Hearing you guys talk about this is really the integrity of your horsemanship matching the intensity of your horsemanship, right? Because oftentimes what we do see is that when things get fast, things can get sloppy, or things can get tense, things can kind of fall apart. And we have, we as people can get so single track minded, right? On, I've got to go get that cow, or I've got to go, whatever it is that's increasing the intensity. I've got to get a response. I need to get a flying change out of this. I need to get 14 flying changes right now, or, whatever that is. When the integrity matches the intensity, I think that's really what we're aiming for with that. That might be the next t-shirt. I don't know. But yeah, so that takes us into our next topic for discussion here that we have, is going to be relaxation through the bridle. And I'm pretty excited about this one myself, because this is with myself as well as Daniel and Jim, the three of us talking about relaxation through the bridle. And I really love that we come from different aspects and slightly different approaches with this, right? Daniel being the bit guy, right? As the name, I think he so accidentally got termed the bit guy, right? And Jim with the relaxation as the body work focus. I think this is going to be such a fun presentation to put together, because to me, it's how does the bit work? How does it function that helps to promote the relaxation that we're talking about? And how can that help be the conduit for the communication that we're looking for?
Yep, I'm pretty excited about this one myself. I've definitely been looking forward to doing some work with the two of you, and I hope we can get some. I know Catherine's horses are well known for being, wild-eyed and crazy. So hopefully we can help bring them down and calm them down a little bit. That's one thing I don't know if we have said, but we are using Catherine's horses for this. So I think we need to definitely commend her and give her a shout out for letting us play on her stuff.
It's not my place, it's my clients' horses, and they're totally on board with it, and they're gonna welcome all of us. And so you'll get to play with some of my babies. It's like, I'm a little apprehensive about this, I have to say, because you're gonna read the open books that are my horses, and you're gonna know a whole lot about what I've been doing, and it's gonna be very it's
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so it's
Yeah, with those magical feelers in our butt you were talking about earlier.
That reminds me, I forgot I was signed up for this one. I think I'm sick that day. I'm not sure.
It's going to be great. I'm really looking forward to it. And yes, and Katrin, thank you for being able to organize this for us. It's to have these horses available for use. That's something that as a clinician, as a teacher, I never take lightly when someone offers for me to work with their horse when I've not met them or their horse before. Right? I think that's a very intimate, special, important thing that I try to never take lightly. And that's what the whole idea with this summit is too. It's that respectful coming to the horse for the horse. Yeah. And going on here, then our next topic that we have is the practical groundwork. And that's Ben and Daniel going to be talking about that. What does good groundwork really look like? That's going to be a really great topic as well. You guys want to share your thoughts on that one?
Yeah. Practical groundwork to me is something that's missing for a lot of people. That I find a lot of people that are passionate about learning horsemanship, and they want what's best for their horse. They want a better connection, better communication. They want to be safe, all of those things, but they often get stuck or on a plateau doing things that they've been told to do without really necessarily knowing why, and maybe not connecting it to progress, developing it further with quality. Groundwork is multifaceted, and the more that we can learn about what's going on physically, mentally, and emotionally in our horses, the better those tools will work to help us make that progress and develop better horses all the way around, instead of just going through the motions and getting these horses that just go through the motions and do things without even being asked. They're just so, I call it being mechanized. A lot of horses almost get mechanized, where they'll do a little maneuver because they've done it so many times and nobody knows why. It's just, there's a bit of disconnect between the purpose of that maneuver or what you're developing in the future to build on that. And so I think it's just a real practical thing. It's a safety issue on the ground at times. It's being able to shift their weight over so you can pick a foot up easier. It's the farrier being safer around them. It's all those things, trailer loading, everything. So I'm pretty excited to hear Daniel's take on that as well, and just dig in deeper and help people realize some of the purposes and how many different aspects we're talking about when it comes to really good groundwork.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And we just lost Daniel's connection on here, so hopefully he'll be bumping back in a moment. But I really love the way that you talk about that, so that it's not just a checklist, right? It's not, okay, did that, check, that's done. Did this other thing, check, that's done, right? Because it's about a conversation, right? It's not just a to-do list. It's a conversation.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I use that same word. It's a conversation. And who wants to go somewhere with your best friend every day and sit down and have a coffee and literally have the same conversation every day? And that's kind of what I see a lot of people doing with their horses. They'll
Like Groundhog
go out,
Day,
they'll
right?
catch them up, lateral flexion to the standstill, yield the hind quarter, circle them this way, move the forequarter, and it's just like you say, a checklist instead of a dynamic, engaging conversation.
Yeah. And that's when, just like you mentioned, you start to see the horses go on rote, right? And then they
Yep.
just do the thing because it's the thing that they've done, or the thing that they know you're going to do next, or whatever. And it almost becomes a monologue where you're both kind of operating almost independent of each other, right? And
Yeah.
not interacting with each other. You're out there. It's kind of like line dancing, right? Like you can be out there on the dance floor, you're doing your own steps, but you're not bumping into. It's certainly not a waltz, right? Like there's not necessarily that same engagement. You could do just as much by yourself as with a partner that way.
Absolutely.
That's kind of cool. It's like taking a to-do list, because from personal experience, I might go out and do something with my horse, and then I'm doing it over and over, and I don't know what to do next. I'm just doing the same thing. And so you can take this to-do list you have and turn it into a conversation, because you got the list, right? So you have some of the tools. You're just going to learn how to use them in a better way, where you're really going to have that conversation and connection with your horse and go to the next level. So that's exciting. See, yeah, and I don't even have to pay to go to this thing. I can learn this kind of stuff just showing up. So I'm really excited.
Right? That is such a great aspect of this, right? Is that we will be learning from each other as we do this, right? That's, again, the collaborative side of things with this, I think, is so fantastic. And I don't know if anybody attending is going to learn as much about the horses as we will while we're there, right? Like we'll be sharing, but we'll be learning as much or more than everybody else there. And yeah, that's just going to be so great. It's going to be so great to be part of that. So going on then to our next presentation on here, Ben, you're also going to be talking here in this one with Katrin about dressage versus the vaquero. That's going to be pretty interesting. I can't wait to see what you guys have to come up with for this, about finding common ground and the common goals between dressage and vaquero. Do you want to share anything with us on that?
Go ahead, Katrin.
This one too, because really that's been like my quest in life, wanting to find the common ground. And and I've always found myself between the chairs, and that my Western tenets don't really go well with the dressage crowd, and vice versa. And so and I've always felt that's really wrong, because we're all trying to do the same thing in the end. And the differences that there are between a good Western horse or a good vaquero horse and a good dressage horse, they're pretty superficial. If you take away all the bling and the black tack and the shiny boots, well, then you have a horse that's imbalanced and happy or not. And when you take away the fancy rawhide stuff and the silver conches from the vaquero horse, you have the same thing. So I'm really looking forward to that one.
Yeah, absolutely. I know for me, teaching in New Zealand and getting to work with a lot of different riders and horses from a huge range of disciplines, I had to learn to speak different language for one thing. Like you say, the terminology is different and things like that, but we're trying to accomplish the exact same things. And I believe that the best bridle horse is pretty much exactly the same as a top level dressage horse, except it's got a job to do. And the reality, the sad reality is that most dressage horses these days don't have that purpose and that job to do unless they're used in cross training or got out of the arena and put to work somehow. The roots, and we'll talk about this in our presentation, the history of what we call dressage today is very much rooted in the same tradition as the vaquero bridle horse. And in centuries past, the purpose was either warfare or some stock work, and particularly the Spanish fighting bulls. And so when you're working either in warfare or Spanish fighting bulls for your maneuverable purpose, your athletic maneuverability, accuracy and refinement and responsiveness become really, really important, and I think the horses understand that just as well as the humans do. So yeah, I'm really excited to see how much common ground there is, and that when we strip away all the tack and the competitions and everything else that goes with it, that we're very much after the same thing: a horse that's in balance and athletically maneuverable, responsive, relaxed, and okay mentally and emotionally.
Yeah. No, I think it's going to be great, and really, the to me the biggest difference between the two really is that dressage is, that the vaquero tradition is a working tradition, and dressage, it has its roots in a working tradition, but then you've had that double-edged sword of like the Spanish riding school and the French school and all of those, where dressage is horsemanship for its own sake. And that's a really beautiful thing, because horse and rider get to focus totally on each other, and there is no practical purpose anymore other than harmony. But then, you have the downside to that then it becomes stylized, it becomes dogmatized, it becomes like, oh, this ideal thing that happened in centuries past. And I hear that in dressage world a lot, like, oh, the old masters, they knew this thing, and today, it's like, no, there's good horsemanship everywhere if you open your eyes. And it's, and again, it has nothing to do with the tack. So yeah, I really look forward to unpacking all of that with you.
That's going to be great. That's going to be a really, really great presentation. And then the next one we've got on the list is contact. And Katrin, you're going to be sharing the stage with Daniel on that one, talking about contact. What is contact? What's the difference between what we think of as Western and English contact? And when is that appropriate? And Jim mentioned earlier that when Daniel talks about where's the first place that the horse feels the contact, right? And that being on the lip, right? So knowing more about that, I'll turn it over to you guys to talk about that. What we're looking at, knowing more about that.
I'll let Katrin go first, but the one thing I wanted to say, the difference between Western and English contact is English is pinky out.
Ha! No, it's not. That's a funny one, Daniel. No, it's yeah, I have that discussion all the time with my students, with my Western students and with my dressage students, with the people that have been in competitive parts of the horse world. And so yeah, it's like half the time I find myself saying, lighten up, it's not that, just give the reins away, just try riding without contact, and then we'll revisit the concept. And then the other half of the time I'm like, it's okay to shorten the reins, it's okay to feel your horse's mouth, it's fine, it's not pulling, it's not your horse pulling on you, it's not you pulling on your horse, it's none of these things, it's just being with your horse. And so to me, contact is like what the Native Americans used to call the singing wire, like that concept of the old telegraph wire, of like information like going back and forth. And it can be a really beautiful thing, but there's no force and no pulling involved on anyone's part. So I always have that discussion. Daniel, what about you?
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. One of the things that I really want to talk about when we say contact, people always think of, both reins tight and so forth. And I really believe that is a progression. And I don't think a lot of people understand that. Contact actually begins one rein at a time. And I cannot tell you the number of problem horses that I've had in. And when I go to pick up on the right rein, I get a dull, busy signal. It's like trying to turn a barge or something like that. And when you soften them laterally and then go back into contact, then the magic, it all gets connected again and the horse feels safe with you. So that was a big part of what I kind of wanted to work on and try to demonstrate. Not that your horses are going to be problem horses. I'm sure they'll be fine. We'll just have to fake it and you know, try to demonstrate what I'm talking about there. But I think that's really important, because if people don't understand what contact is and they don't have a step back when things go wrong, then that's going to lead to problems. So.
Yeah, and I also think like this whole, the contradiction between like, oh, I only ride on a loose rein because I'm a Western rider. It's like, oh, I only ride on contact because I'm a dressage rider. It's like, no, that is just baloney. Because if your horse goes really well on contact, you should be able to drop the contact and not need it all the time. So to me, that's one of the things I do a lot. Like, oh, this feels really good. Okay, can I throw that horse away? And if I do, what happens? And ideally, nothing much happens. Or if the horse goes on a loose rein, and I get some some Western horses that to me aren't that well trained, and so they you try to explain contact to them, they shrink away from it. They're like, oh my god, it's like, if I'm in contact with the bit, bad things are going to happen to my mouth. Well, you can't fault the horse for thinking that, but that's also not what contact is. That's not what lightness is. So yeah, this will be super interesting. I look forward to that.
Yeah, it's going to be a great discussion. It's going to be really great.
Especially with Dan's knowledge of bits,
Yeah.
That's going to be super cool.
Oh God, and I'm already embarrassed about showing my tack room to Daniel, because I've been a victim of the marketing of the bit companies. Oh my God, it's like I've been called the Imelda Marcos of snaffle bits, and you will see that. So.
Well, one thing I would like to say, what you're talking about there, and we'll discuss this when we do our presentation as well. I don't think we see self-carriage nearly as often as people think we do. I think we often see held carriage, and people don't do that test of what happens when I let go. Does he fall completely out of frame, or does he actually understand that this is a place I'm trying to put you, and you're now responsible for maintaining it, and I get to get out of your way some. So I think it'll be a very interesting presentation.
It's gonna be cool.
That's going to be great. Yeah. And that takes us into the next presentation there that Ben and I get to tackle. And that's going to be one-handed riding. And when is it appropriate? How can you do it? Discussing the ability to ride with one hand, regardless of your discipline. What's it for? Maybe it's to grab your coffee off the fence. If you're as addicted to coffee as I am, all of your horses will operate one-handed, at least when they see your coffee cup in the corner. But there's
my coffee is getting a little low right now. So.
Your iced coffee. There you go. Yeah. But we talk about, using the riata, right? Using the rope, using the garrocha. Let's talk about that a little bit, Ben, that progression. We're going to talk, of course, in the presentation about how do we get to that point. But talk a little bit about that with us.
I think, the good place to start there is just the whole idea that as riders dedicated to being students of the horse and to making progress and so forth, that all of us want to work towards being able to ride well in one hand and understand the neck rein and have our horses understand that neck rein and the indirect rein. And I say that a lot at my clinics, and I think for English riders, it kind of blows their mind sometimes. It's something that's never crossed their mind. And even more and more these days, a lot of Western horses, or quote unquote Western horses, I would say, horses that are being ridden in Western tack anyway, and even ranch horses I'm seeing ridden in two hands for an inordinate amount of time. Mm-hmm. And it's almost like the pendulum has swung too far, I guess you could say. You could look back at some of the old Westerns and, classic scene. They're all jumping on their horses. They're going to form a posse and chase down the bank robbers. And they're reefing on those horses' mouths so hard on the indirect rein, the neck rein, that, that's the one, Daniel. The horse is going the correct direction, but he ain't shaped the right way. I mean, he's just being hauled on. And now we've swung so far that even some Western riders are staying in two hands for a long time, it seems like, and not making that progress that I think you and I want to talk about, of how do we get our hands closer to that bridle box? How do we get our two-handed reining, those direct reins, where if our wrists are touching, how do we transition then into one hand? How do we hold the reins to be able to still support a direct rein if it's needed? And also along with that, how are we using our seat and legs to help communicate so that the neck rein can truly be a signal instead of having to drag their nose around?
Yeah, exactly. And it is interesting. And I love that you talked about that idea of the neck rein, right? And you're right. So many English riders, again, English in air quotes, right? When you mention the neck rein, it's a thing that almost sounds foreign, right? But several years ago, regretfully, I didn't keep a record of the book that I found, but it was definitely the oldest record that I found where the neck rein was mentioned, and it was a dressage manual talking about the use of the outside rein. And the gentleman, and again, I didn't pay close enough attention to who it was or what the book was, but mentioned it in reference to a neck rein, right? And that is
Yes.
something, you're right. We see it's very much like two hands is what we do. If you've got breeches on, you're riding with two hands, right? And you do see it a lot more in the Western riders right now, or like you said, I love the way that you made that distinguishment there of horses in Western tack, right? But that idea of what's the ultimate goal, right? Where are we headed to eventually? One of the things that I think is really interesting, and I may ruffle some feathers with this, is that when we see horses ridden in the double bridle, particularly when we see older photos of horses being ridden in the double bridle and the curb rein is dropped and the snaffle rein is picked up. And you'll have lots of riders celebrating that, saying, look at the lightness in the curb rein. Well, the ultimate idea, the ultimate progression is the opposite of that. Having the horse in such self-carriage that you can connect with one hand holding the curb rein and allowing the snaffle to be slack. Now, you kind of see some of that in two hands, the curb rein being really tight and the snaffle being a little more slack in some of the modern dressage that we see, but it's not working with the same principles that we're talking about right now.
Right.
So make sure that doesn't get confused by anybody listening here. We're talking about lightness and self-carriage, it's not me myself carrying my horse, right? But it's, as you guys have mentioned already, and that's where I think this whole summit is going to just be so fun with all this collaboration and these shared ideas in here. But it is, yeah, so much that long-term goal. We see horses at the Grand Prix and we think, well, that's it. That's the end of it. That's the end of what was considered the basic education, right? Then we talk about the high school riding and things like that. But that's becoming more of a lost art, unfortunately. But that idea of where do we go from here, right? And so just like you mentioned, you're riding with your hands close together. I love that term that you use, the bridle box, right? Having that in there. Sometimes I refer to it as my chessboard, right? In there. So I think we're talking about a very similar thing right there. That's really cool to hear that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, well, where do you go from there? And how do you naturally progress the horse from there? And is your seat actually being that primary communicator? Right.
Exactly.
So I love that. I'm even more excited now for the chance to talk about that together with you, because that
That's
sounds
going to be
like
awesome.
so much similar lingo and similar meaning behind that. So super cool. Super cool. All right. And then the next conversation that we're going to have in there, the next topic that we have presenting here is going to be in hand work. And that's going to be in hand work with Jim Masterson. That's going to be pretty interesting. Did you know you were doing that, Jim?
No, but what the heck? I might learn something. I can get a lesson.
There we go.
Well,
you're
in
gonna
hand,
be good at it,
in
doing
this,
a lot of it.
yeah, as far as working on horses, it's all in hand work, pretty much.
Ah, there you go.
So maybe I can add to that a little bit and learn something new.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah,
Exactly.
because
So that's
like
the
you get the
presentation we'll be doing together, and that's going to be super.
Yeah, that'll be fun. You know, all the movement techniques we use to release tension in joints and junctions and muscles has to be while the horse is in a relaxed state. So, you know, all of the ground, the in hand work is working, keeping the horse in a relaxed state, but following what you're doing. So that'll be interesting. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now I'm looking forward to it.
Now you're looking forward to it? Okay, good, good. Me too. One of the things that I think is really important to think about when we're doing anything with our horse, we're going to talk about it specifically in this topic or this presentation that we do. We're going to talk about it in the realm of in-hand work, but it's just as suitable for horses doing any kind of work. It's that when is the horse saying, I don't want to versus I can't. Right. And I find that when you present things in the way to the horse, the way that we're talking about in all of these presentations, rarely do we have a horse that says, I don't want to. But often what we have the horse say is, I don't feel like I can, or I don't understand your question. Right.
Yeah.
And just like we've talked about so many times here, that's the conversation. Right. If a horse doesn't understand, or if the horse isn't capable of, what they're giving us is feedback, right? They're not giving us resistance. They're giving us feedback. And I think that's important to know.
It's feedback. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm in.
You're in? Okay, good, good. Well, if you'll be there, I'll be there. We'll do it together. That's going to be great. And then we have, it looks like what I'm seeing on the list here is that there's a special bonus where Dr. Doug Tall is going to be with us as the host for the 2025 mini summit and going to contribute to Groundwork sessions with his veterinary wisdom and advice with that also. So I think that that's going to be really fascinating to have that. So it really is, and Maddie had to jump off here, but it really is such a full scale mix of presentations, right? We're talking about everything from basic groundwork to advanced groundwork, everything from basic riding to advanced riding, and the conversations that we have with our horse at all of those levels. So I think this is really going to be an awesome event. I'm really excited to be presenting with you guys and to be sharing the stage and learning from you at the same time. That's, to me, that's what this collaborative effort is about. It's about sharing and learning for us as well as for the attendees.
No, it's gonna be great. And I really love what Maddie said earlier about people feeling safe. I mean, it's the same thing as like horses can't learn when they're not feeling safe. So that's one thing about the summit. I've been to every summit that there has been, and it's always been the spirit of feeling welcome and also not feeling judged. And that, to me, that's something that in the horse world today, especially in the online environment, where people are just afraid to say this or that, and the summit is just a different space. It's a different venue, and we're taking really, really good care, all of us, and really, like, all the participants that ever have been to one, like, this is like, we're not here to judge, we're not here to point fingers, we're not here to say, oh my god, this is terrible, and you should be ashamed of yourself. We're here to all learn together from each other, and from the questions that people ask that I also really look forward to. And that is, I think, the big difference, and that is what you don't get in normal clinics, where it's just one clinician, or if you don't get that from a lot of the online horseverse, where you have an online course or whatever, and you're sitting in your living room studying that. And so you're going to get this really vibrant aliveness of all of us, bouncing ideas off each other and challenging each other, but also getting along with each other. And and the same with the questions from the audience. And I really look forward to the audience being smaller and us being able to be even more interactive than we have been in the past. So yay.
Yeah, absolutely.
That interactive part's really, really good with the audience. And with us, but with the audience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. The last summit was the most intimate event I've ever been to. I mean, you get to make connections and meet these people. They get to pick our brains. And I don't know about the rest of you, but I really enjoy when you're doing a presentation. Kind of one of the hardest parts of it is I've got so much I could talk about here. What branch of the tree do I pick and ignore the rest? And when you have an audience there, when they can ask questions, then now we know that, okay, I need to highlight this. I have more direction, and we can kind of customize it to what they're needing and what they want. And I'm really excited about that. And then there's what's going to be 5 or 6 of us and 70 people. So we're all going to eat meals together. They're definitely going to get to take the picture, ask the question, whatever the thing they want to do in terms of rubbing elbows with us. And I really like that. And some of these bigger events, it's a lot more of an anonymous. There's just thousands, you're not going to remember any singular person because you're meeting. So it's like drinking from a fire hose. And this will definitely have the intimacy that most events lack.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%. That intimacy is such a big thing, and I'm glad that you brought that up again. And the amount of Q&A that we have the opportunity to engage with, right? And the roundtable discussions, and the last one where there was the panel where the group of us would sit up there on the same question and just pass the microphone and answer from your perspective that question that came up. There's really not many places where you can find that kind of collaboration and open sharing, where even if our experiences had us thinking about a completely different approach to, whatever that problem solving was that we're talking about, or whatever that question was that was being asked, it's that ability to share all of that and say, oh, you know what? Yeah. He's mentioning that. I can think of a time when I could maybe use that, or maybe next year it pops into your head. Oh, that's what Daniel was talking about when he mentioned whatever, or that's what Ben meant when he said whatever, right? It's that so much, again, yeah, that intimate situation where you can get so many perspectives.
And then also the other side of that, Patrick, is really that there is, like, this is like the only event I've ever been to as a presenter, or even as a participant, where it's like I have the freedom as a presenter, as somebody that people look to. I have the freedom to say, I don't know. Let's ask Patrick. Let's ask Jim. And that is hugely liberating. Well, of course I don't know everything. Of course I don't know but a very tiny fraction of everything there is to know, and so does everybody else. And it's just, I mean, yeah, enormously important to admit that. And that is where a lot of the horse clinics and horse expos I've been to, that is just not done. It's like, no, I know everything. And then when it's becoming pretty clear that the presenter doesn't know something, well, then they try to cover it up, and then the ego gets in the way. And then you have that, that downward spiral, and things, sometimes get ugly, and people, lose a lot of respect for that person. We've never done that. We're always there lifting each other up. And we're like, well, I'm the first one to admit, like, my groundwork skills are pretty rudimentary. And like, I'm going to pick up hopefully a thing or two from you, Patrick, and you, Ben, and you, Jim. I mean, and you, Daniel. Like, it's like, wow, it's like, yeah, I know I don't nearly do enough groundwork. And so, that's just an example. So there's like all those things. It's like, yeah, I'm pretty good at this like little tiny thing of explaining contact on collection to a green horse, and some other tiny little things, but those are all just little puzzle pieces of good horsemanship, right? And you guys have other pieces, and and then together we're going to put them all on the table and say, okay, let's make a big picture out of that. So I really look forward to that.
Absolutely. I think that you just said maybe the 3 most important words that professionals, I'm pretty sure, of any industry need to be more comfortable saying. I don't know. Right? If when we get comfortable saying, I don't know, then we start looking for the answers, right? And so then we continue to learn, we continue to grow.
I'm pretty comfortable with it because I get a lot of practice saying that.
Yeah.
I did not unmute quick enough, but that was the perfect setup for a who's on first kind of a circle with the what are the 3 words that Patrick, what are the 3 words? I missed it.
Yeah, that's it. That's it.
I don't know, ma'am. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know.
Oh gosh, this has been so much fun, gang. Now I know that Maddie had to jump off here, but she left a message for us. I'm going to pull it back up here so that I can post it for folks. For our listeners here, Maddie wanted us to mention that the next 10 registered attendees are going to get $100 in trade show credit. There's going to be Patagonia gear there. There's going to be a lot of stuff there that you can apply that to. So that's the next 10 participants that are registering right here, right now. So if you are looking to register, make sure that you follow the link for more details. That's going to be besthorsepracticessummit.com. horsemanship.org/registration. Take a look at that link and sign up. We're looking at, that's going to be October 31st to November 2nd. That's going to be in Santa Fe, New Mexico. And that is the Best Horse Practices Summit 2025.
I think that was .org, Patrick. It was
.org, you're right.
Yeah,
.org.
I'm saving you from getting some. I'm saving you from getting some angry people to go mad at you because they were late. So
yes, you're right. besthorsepracticessummit.org/registration. So thank you for correcting me on that one, Jim. There's so many of those things now. It's easy to get those.
Yeah, no, somebody might try to get on right away and then they'll miss it, and then you're going to be on the spot. So
I'm going to get the hate mail when they miss the credit.
Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. Well, thank you guys so much. This is going to be a blast. I'm really looking forward to sharing the weekend with all of you, to present, sharing the weekend, sharing the stage. This is going to be so much fun. I was looking forward to it before, and now after we've gone through the breakdown of what it is we're going to be talking about, and more about each of you and what you're bringing to the table, I am so excited to be a student all weekend.
Absolutely. It's a real privilege to get to work with you guys, and I'm looking forward to it. Very excited.
It's gonna be a blast. It's
You're here.
It really is.
I'm planning on going through 10 jars of mayonnaise. I'm really looking forward to it.
That'll be the next 10 registered participants too.
We better get this off. We better shut this down quick before
Somebody's
it
going to
goes
send a message. Can I start at number 11? Can I register? Oh, goodness. All right. Well, thank you so much, gang. And for those of you tuning in, thank you so much for tuning in for this. Again, episode number 66 of Talking About Horses, in this special episode presentation with the presenters of the Best Horse Practices Summit. We look forward to the event. We look forward to seeing you all there. Thank you so much for tuning in. And again, be sure to visit besthorsepracticessummit.org for more information. Thanks so much, gang.
Cool. Bye, everybody.
Bye.